is the play days. This season we offered, we had a coaches survey. The results overall came back as satisfied. And one of the main bullet points was that we have optional player and coaches education that's wanted. We offered 3 girls 12U and 14U regional play days. We had them in the Central West, Northwest, and Northeast. We offered 4 8U and 10U boys and girls regional play days, 1 in each region. Ultimately, we were only able to plan 3, and 2 were canceled due to COVID. I wanted to just let you know we had high attendance at the Central West Patelco. We had low attendance at the 12U Petaluma. I think it had to do with the date. And the Northeast for Bartholomew, we had good attendance for the B teams and low attendance for our A teams. For the boys and girls play days, we were able to have 1 of 4. Pleasanton, we had high attendance. Menlo, we had high attendance planned, but it was canceled due to COVID-19. Northwest Region Petaluma, we had low attendance, but then it was canceled due to COVID, and the teams had the option to join in at Patelco. For the Northeast Sacramento, a play day, but the RSVPs were very low, so we did not wind up planning that event at all. We still want to offer this event in the future, and we want to know what we can do to promote this regional event for 8s and 10U boys and girls. So I just wanted to give you a quick summary of the season play day, preseason play days. Let's see. So the current play day format that was well received was 2 to 3 mini games offered to 8U through 14U B girls, and a limited location for the A teams for 14 and 12. The 8U and 10U boys, and then 12U boys limited based off of which clubs host that event. We also had jamborees planned this year, and we want to know, did the NCJLA scheduling of the jamborees assist your club schedulers, and was your club able to secure enough games? So the floor is open to comment on any of those topics. Okay.
We like the format at Menlo Atherton. I think with the coaches clinic and the number of games and the timing, and trying to keep the games for each team within a certain number of hours. Like teams didn't have to wait all day. You know, they were within a 3-hour period. Seemed to work.
Thank you.
I think also for the Grizzlies, they were helpful in scheduling for those younger teams.
Okay. So this season we provided both in-person and online jamboree scheduling. We had the in-person at the meeting, obviously, and we had some people sign up on the spreadsheet in person. Lots of teams did sign up, but then once we offered it online on the Google spreadsheet, we got a lot more teams that wanted to add in, but our ultimate goal is to fill up all of the jamborees with teams and games for the whole day that we have those fields reserved. So changes made to the final schedule are inevitably going to change, and my biggest question is that I want to know if teams are okay with that process, that when we want to have teams add in, that we we staff would go in and shift those teams or games around. But like to your point, through the first commenter, that we do keep the games in like a time frame, so they're not coming at 8 a.m. and then have to wait and have their second or third game at 3 p.m. So that is our goal, but that's where our in-house or our centralized scheduling comes into play. So we just want to know from, especially from regionally, is that working for everyone for the most part, that we get the RSVP and sort of the time of day that you want to go, but then we have the freedom to change it around so that we can accommodate more teams.
Some things got moved around, and I just think it became, it wasn't clear communication, because I know like our 8U team showed up, they didn't have a game, it was moved, changed. So I think there's got to be a little bit of a cutoff date where we say after this date, we're not going to add, because, you know, parents have made some plans. I mean, even within a window, that's really the key thing, I guess, as long as we don't go outside the window. But there's got to be clear communication. If at one point you had an 8 a.m. game and now you have an 8:30 game or an 8:45 game, and that's kind of what happened to us 2 years ago with one of our 8
Yeah. I'm having a little trouble hearing you. Is that on my end?
I don't know. Did anybody?
No, I am as well.
Okay. I think I got what you were saying, that you submitted your requests by a certain date. We gave you dates and we asked you a bunch of questions, and then ultimately it wound up changing, maybe even multiple times.
Okay,
is that
is
what
this
I
better?
heard? Yes, that's much better.
I changed microphone. Sorry about that. Yeah, we just 2 years ago we ran into an issue where it just wasn't the communication to us that when games got changed, time changed. So I think maybe a cutoff date so that people who make plans and know what time their games are going to be.
Yeah. So this year we tried to mitigate that with using the Google Sheet, the Google spreadsheet. And I think it made things better because you could go in and look at your schedule, and we tried to notify clubs when we did have to make adjustments as soon as possible. Like, but for instance, saying, like the Grizzlies want to add in another game, we have room. Do you mind if we bump your schedule 1 hour up or down to accommodate another game? Or we, you know, we're looking for another opponent for, you know, the Grizzlies, something like that. So the flexibility piece is really what we want to know about, and like if what feedback directly you all have that we can consider to make it smoother for your schedulers and better for your teams. And are you getting enough games through the jamborees in this format?
Yeah, Ari, you guys may have addressed it, since we obviously didn't have the jamboree this year because it was, you know, after the COVID date. So you may have already addressed that from the year before and made some corrections. But I think as long as the teams stay within the window that they've already been assigned, as long as there's clear communication, I think you can switch things around a little bit.
Yeah, I think we're on the right path, and I'm looking forward to making it even better going forward. Because even with the Google spreadsheet addition, I saw room for improvement there too. So we just want to make sure you guys have a say, and if anybody else wants something to add something, let us know.
Hi, this is Richard Yee from Warriors. Our U8s weren't signed up for any of the jamborees this year due to the locations. I think the ones that were scheduled were, I think, up in Petaluma, and it's just too far for us to travel that far. So I think for us to be able to try to attend, they would have to be closer. You know, in the San Jose-ish area, I suppose, or up as far as Menlo Park.
Okay. That's good
I
feedback.
think-
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think it's also important, especially to try and grow the game. I mean, to help with the getting the youth players, the younger players, to be able to play. It also, you have to be able to offer games and locations that are within a reasonable distance, for especially the smaller clubs. It's going to be difficult to get someone even from San Jose, I would think, to go all the way up to Petaluma for a U8 game. It's a 2.5 hour drive to a +2+ hour drive.
Right.
So
we're going to touch base in a little bit about outlier. I mean, I hate to use that word. Want to make sure I define it properly, but some of the clubs that are located on more of the outskirts of the region, like for instance, Santa Cruz, that we do want to accommodate events closer to your areas. We have attempted, not necessarily closer. I mean, I think last year we had something in Morgan Hill, but for example, in the Northeast region, we've tried to have some events in the Sacramento area, and it's really hard to get high attendance from outside clubs. So it would be definitely something that we should talk about specifically on how to get something closer to accommodate your region for the 8U and 10U, because we definitely want to continue to grow the game.
okay.
If there's no other feedback for the jamborees, would your clubs like to see any changes to the current events offered? And we already covered what new events would you like to see for your region? So I hear that maybe another event closer to Santa Cruz would be something that Santa Cruz wants.
Well, yeah, and just to be clear, it doesn't have to be in Santa Cruz. We're not afraid to travel, and we travel as far as like Belmont or Burlingame, but
But
just
something
like
closer than Menlo.
Menlo is on the edge, yeah, but yeah. So I understand that moving it farther south makes it more difficult for teams farther north. So Central Peninsula or Mid Peninsula, is an okay location. Of course, varying it and close would be nicer, but I'm not expecting us not to travel. We always travel, but and a lot of people like to come to Santa Cruz too. So
They do. Yeah.
Just to make it a variety rather than always in more directed towards Petaluma area, and
Got it.
stuff. So San Jose, I mean, it also would benefit like Hollister, the Grizzlies. I mean, I think the Tomahawks, or where am I saying? The Monterey Tribe, and like Morgan Hill, teams and stuff like that too as well.
Thank you so much. I think that's great feedback.
Erin, hey, it's Kim Pepper, just getting on. When you think about 8U and 10U, a lot of these kids are new, a lot of the families are new. And I think as you see this season progress, they get more invested, especially the kids and the parents, and people start to show up more. They are excited about it. They're getting better at it. They like it. And so I think there should be a timeline in terms of travel. Like, for example, I think it makes the most sense to like pick the 2 clubs closest to you, 1 club closest to you, and you just have these mini teeny jamborees in March and April. And you probably, like, we do this all the time with Firehawks. I mean, I probably know everybody's name on the Firehawks team because we play them at 8U and 10U so many times. But that's all they need, and that's all that parents need in the beginning. And then with the idea of towards the end, people are like, oh my God, I'm in, this is fun, we're committed, the weather's better, and in May or whatever, that's when we go to Santa Cruz and they host farther away teams, or we host farther away teams, but I think there needs to be a kind of a mental understanding of the age that we're dealing with and the parents that we're dealing with and their commitment levels. And by the end of the season, you always get these parents being like, it's over? Like we were just getting into it. Where in the beginning, they're probably still playing basketball or flag football. They don't have the right equipment. Like it's not their thing yet. And by the end of the season, they are. And so I think we should be mindful of, keeping it so simple in the beginning of the season for a while and then building it to a nice ramp of travel at the end. Does that make sense?
It definitely does. I think of buy-in. So you're right on the money with those new parents and families, that keeping it as local as possible is always going to be your best bet. And I love your idea of your clubs in your regions working together to have those, like you could say, round robins or small club level jamborees, you could call them. We definitely want to be able to facilitate the larger jamborees, like and help clubs with those larger events. But I think that's really good feedback, and maybe we can develop some sort of guidelines and best practices for 8U and 10U that we put out to the regions.
And just in terms of saving your bandwidth and the league's bandwidth, like I'm never really a fan of those preseason jamborees. I know there's a reason for, I guess, refs and training them, but like people don't even know who their rosters are. These kids are not committed. You get like 7 people showing up and you're traveling to the East Bay for them. Like rather just keep it like host your own little, scrimmage jamboree with one other club. That's it, closest to you. And don't make anything, the first weekend of the season or anything like that. Really focus towards the end.
Yeah, I hear your point. I do think we do try to facilitate we don't need rosters or any of that for our preseasons. And you're right, it is for officials. And you'll see based on numbers that getting junior officials a play day, a local play day in the region, that's good for them too. So we do want to continue to offer that for those junior officials, which we kind of do need. Those 10U play days are really beneficial for them, but that's kind of a different topic. But I appreciate your feedback. I think it's wonderful. Thanks. Are there any other comments for our regional events for these? We're not really talking about end of season in this meeting.
This is Karen Firehawks. I do have a question kind of to everybody, because I did have the same problem in the very beginning weeks with attendance and like fearful that I was only going to show up to a game with 5 kids. So if you need those preseason jamborees for official training and stuff, is it the kind of thing where I could, I'd have kids register that want to register for it, and you kind of have a mix of clubs that are playing if other people are having that attendance issue? Because then if it's for training purposes, the kids who can and want to could. Or I'm like, it could be that you guys don't have the same problem that I had with my 8U attendance the first weeks of preseason.
I agree, Karen. I mean, similar, I didn't speak to earlier to the meetings about all of the regulations and the uniforms that have to get in and all that stuff. I mean, the reality is I know the league wants everything in early. Nothing happens until that first weekend of games when you're still, I mean, we took so many kids registering into the Coyotes 3 weeks into the program at 8U and 10U and even 12U, 14U. If someone wants to join lacrosse, I don't say no to anyone. I let them join us. And so I'm scrambling to find old uniforms. I was emailing alumni to say, do you guys have old Coyotes uniforms? We didn't order enough, and then we're moving around numbers and stuff. And that, in terms of growing the game, should be our goal, is like, no matter what happens, we are letting people join in at any point. And so that makes things that are very structured in the beginning and need, real rosters and real whatever, it makes it so difficult. And it makes the poor NCGLA people, running crazy. And I just think the less structure in the beginning, the better, because it'll all come together, but it all comes together that first week in the season. So maybe for the officials, for the preseason play day or whatever, it's a clinic to sign up for. And to Karen's point, it's just a mix. Like, who cares what team you're on at 8U or 10U? Throw them all together, throw 10 kids on one field and 10 kids on the other.
Yeah, those are all, I'm right with you. I think having that more explained, that you guys can totally do that. And that is actually, as far as I know, always been the case, that we don't need rosters or any registrations at all for those play days. That we want you to come, and we want it to be basically a facilitated offering to provide an education piece. Maybe it's for the players, for the coaches, and giving your teams and your coaches that sort of like quick opportunity before the season starts. So that's really the nuts and bolts of what those preseason events are.
But even like the first Jamboree, which ended up being canceled because I think it was like the weekend that COVID shut down, right? We had to tell you how many teams we were going to have in advance, where like basically we know our rosters officially like the week of, because the season hasn't started. So many kids came in and we wanted to add more teams. So could it be more of you don't need to register a team. You're just saying Coyotes are showing up, and the week before we tell you how many, and it's more of a clinic. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, because of the structure in the beginning, you don't know how many teams, and then we screw you guys by bringing more teams on or less teams, that kind of thing.
Kim, this is Carlos. I think that it's interesting. That's how we'd love to do it. You just want to make sure, right, that we at least have a rough idea of how many people are coming, and not just clubs are coming, so that we can build the correct infrastructure to support it. I mean, there's a big difference in how it would be run as a clinic, and how many coaches and how many goals and how many everything. If you're bringing one team sort of, or I've got 3 strong teams and I'm ready to come. So I don't know if a week gives them more time, but we want to make sure on the board we have quality events. It's always the thing where people they want flexibility, which is a good thing, and they want us to be prepared and organized and button up, which is also a good thing. But sometimes those things, there's a tension between those two things, and that's what we have to figure out.
Totally, and I agree. And so maybe like you don't do jamborees the first, 4 weeks of the season. So because then by the end of April and May, we know maybe there's a jamboree every weekend from after spring break on. But prior to that, we don't do it. You just do your little, neighborhood, play them 1,000 times, because we'll know more. We'll know how many teams, and you won't be scrambling, and we won't be scrambling.
So what I want to do now is ask anyone who wants to have a separate conversation after workshop to discuss jamborees. I'd be really willing to do that. So we'll move on to our next topic. But I think we've gotten a lot of really great feedback, and I think that we can use that information going forward to improve our offerings. Thank you. So next we have, are Ted and Lynn on the call?
This is Ted, I'm here, yes. Hi.
Ted?
Yes.
Ted is from NorCal chapter of US Lacrosse. And I'm not sure if Lynn is on the call, but Ted will be giving you a short presentation of some great stuff offered by US Lacrosse and NorCal.
Cool, thanks, Erin. Lynn is actually on the other presentation. She and I split duty between the different sessions. So let me start just by introducing myself. As Erin said, my name is Ted Patchett. I'm the president for the NorCal chapter of US Lacrosse. I took over from Don Aiello, who had done this for many years in November. I have a child who's been through the NCJLA, all the age groups, and now playing in high school. And have been involved in club lacrosse from a coaching perspective, an administrative perspective, and actually, interestingly enough, he also refs now. So I'm going to not read you bullet points from all the slides. I'm actually not sure what slides we ended up with here, but I'm going to try and give you information that I think will be helpful to you as you're sitting sort of from where you guys sit and where might be helpful. Aaron, you can go to the, I don't know if there's anything, I'm not quite sure where we end up on slides, but just hit all the points on this. Oh, yeah. Okay. So no, go back to just, you can take it to the full slide. So a couple of things. NorCal chapter, who are we? We're if you will, a subgroup of U.S. lacrosse. And it's a group of people who have been involved with in lacrosse for a long time. There's a wide group, sort of diversity of people with experience playing, administering, coaching, reffing, and we're really all about advancing the game of lacrosse in Northern California, helping it grow, and you know, as it says here, protecting the integrity of the sport. You know, we are there to help clubs. I love this saying, you know, from Lao Tzu. You know, we're not here to do it for you, but we have great resources to help you do it. So as an example, I was listening to the last part of the main session earlier, and all the sort of new steps that are going to be taken as a result of COVID. And I was sitting there thinking, you know what, you guys are going to have really robust volunteer programs for your club. So as an example, we have volunteer programs that people have written. I wrote one that was used at Petaluma. We managed to get a lot of people, and for the people who didn't do it, I think we raised like $1,200 for the club. So we've got those types of documents, and we're glad to share those. We're glad to talk to people and give you suggestions or share experience or get you to the right people. And so that's really the goal of what we do. We're always looking for board members and volunteers. So if you're interested in growing the game, I know Carlos used to sat on our board for a while, but we're always looking for board members and volunteers. We like to try and attend the NCJLA functions. And if you're interested in finding out more about us, my contact information is at the end of this presentation, and you can reach out to me. So in terms of what the different areas are that we do, Aaron, can you just go to just put all the bullet points up on the slide? I'm not reading bullet points, so to allow people to pick out kind of what they're doing. Several things that jump out. We no longer do the training, the coach training and clinics. That's been turned over to the NCJLA, but we do help promote that and work to make sure through the website, through our Facebook page, social media, work to make sure that that's everyone's help promote the awareness and attendance at those training clinics. We have a stick program that we have where we have sticks and balls that are available for clubs to borrow. We have hundreds of sticks that we have in our inventory. They are available for clubs to check out, to use. We will ship them to you. You can use them, and then you can send them back to us. And those sticks that we have probably get, as Ian Bede would say, who runs the program for us, they probably get, some of them 6 to 8 turns a year, so that they're constantly rotating in. So if you're looking to grow the, to increase the awareness in your sport, and you need sticks to borrow to do it, we have them, and you're welcome to use them. We ask you to take care of them, and then when you're done, ship them back to us. We run the NorCal chapter, U.S. Lacrosse, NorCal Hall of Fame Lacrosse Hall of Fame. We're actually taking nominations for that currently. There are different categories for that: coaches, administrators, players. All the information for that is on our website. Typically, it's someone who's been involved in lacrosse in different forms for 10, 15 years. But you can go on there, and we're actually taking nominations for the Hall of Fame class for 2020, which closed at the end of this month. One thing I'll mention there that kind of ties in with the Hall of Fame, in November of next year, we will be hosting the Western Regional Convention. We expect that to be held in Oakland. So for those of you who've always wanted to go to the U.S. Lacrosse Convention but never been able to do so, we're working to bring it out west. It was supposed to be held this November, and we had to postpone it due to COVID. Player activities you can skip, but we help, and when the national teams do come out, we help coordinate setting those up and making them a great event for you. You can go to the next slide, please.
Okay.
What should come up on that next slide is looks like that. Okay, that one's, we had one slide that was pulled. That's fine. Let's go to ref next. So one of the areas that I'm in, and the group that I'm here on behalf of, is the Northern California Women's Lacrosse Officials Association and the Northern California Lacrosse Referees Association. So guys, we need referees. And the game is growing. Our refs are not. The COVID situation is not going to make this easier. We have a lot of refs who've refed because they love the sport and they like to give back, but they're older, and some of them I think are going to look at this and say, you know what, it's just more risk than I'm willing to take. So currently, if you were to talk to Laura Jennings and Don Aiello on the women's side, they will tell you they do not have enough adult officials to cover all the games at the moment. They will help you. You need to find the people, and we'll talk more. I'll mention that in a second. But you need to find the people. They will provide the training, the support. There are scholarships that are available, and they make sure that if you find the people, those people will be equipped to go. So the preseason jamborees that you were talking about, and I actually thought someone made a great point. They are not about having official games. They can be scrimmages, for lack of a better term. They can be used with pennies. They are simply about helping our officials get some experience before they go to ref your first game at the beginning of the year. And one of the things that I think an important footnote on the bottom is that each club that registers a high school or under 14 AB team will be required to recruit a new official this year. I can tell you that's definitely the case on the girls' side. I don't know that it's on the boys' side, but I will tell you on the girls' side, if you're going to register high school or under 14 AB team, NCJLA is going to require you to recruit a new official. And I want to talk in a minute about where you need to start that. On the boys' side, in the red box, we need adult officials for 2021. We actually have quite a number of junior officials. We are having a retention problem with them, and I'll talk about that in a second. But kids who are out of high school now, going to college, dads are coming to watch the games anyway, ex-coaches, under 14 players who are willing to do under 12 games. You need to start recruiting them, and you need to start recruiting them now. And this is both on the boys and the girls side. And the reason for that is the training has to be done before the season starts. Once the season's about to start and you realize we don't have rest, it's too late. The good news as well is that there's two types of parts to the training. There's what used to be a classroom session, which is now available online. That's done in October, November, December, and then there's the field sessions, which tie in with the sort of preseason play days you're talking about, which are done in late January and early February. But please, especially on the girls' side, it is NCJA policy that you have to find an official to register those games. And so I know Kyle's on the line from the girls' side. Erin's on the line. Guys, it's a serious situation, and I would say to you that you need to start talking to parents now. If you know parents that could be potential referees or sort of alums from your program, you need to start contacting them now. Once you're going to get to the summer, people are going to be gone, or truly into the heart of summer. Once the fall comes around, they'll already have made plans. If you're thinking about what your team structure is going to be, start thinking that for each of those teams, I've got to have a ref. I've got to have a coach. I've got to have a team manager, team mom, all that type of thing. You've got to have a ref as well as you think about this. If you could go to the next slide, please, Erin. I think we've covered most of this in here about how you want to do it. You can recruit players 15 or older. I will tell you, my son started reffing as once he hit he was eligible for under 14. That meant he could start reffing under 12 in sort of with the accompaniment of an adult referee. I will tell you now, our adult referees that go out and work with the kids in the game are absolutely phenomenal. One of them's actually become quite a sort of, if you will, a mentor for my son. He loves to ref with all of them. And, so I wouldn't have hesitation about pulling kids out there. They'll be partnered with an adult who will take care of them. I talked about, getting out there early. I think about giving incentives. If the father is willing to come ref, that's great. He's going to get paid a little money. You might want to give his kid a free registration. And you want to, if you can get you can recruit the rest, and they'll be able to officiate your local games. And you're going to see, as people go through it, they move up in terms of the the level that they ref. The last point on the slide in the blue box, we all hear it, but I think it's worth mentioning again. I was reading a article actually the other day, and I think it was the Washington Post. 80% of officials quit after 2 years, and they quit because of unruly parents and coaches. So guys, the people we do have, we need to protect. I don't need to harp on it. We're all here for the good of the game and the good of the kids. So we're preaching to the wrong choir when we say it. But please, if you have, if you know who those parents are, deal with them. Protect our officials, both the adults and the kids. Aaron, you can go to the next slide. My contact information's there. I'm glad to give you any information that if you're looking for help or assistance, or hey, do you have this, or do you have a suggestion for me on someone who can do this, or clubs looking to start volunteer policies. I've coached. I'm glad to give you my thoughts and guidance on A team versus B team. I've seen it when teams have played in the wrong division that were underskilled. I have seen it when teams have played in the wrong division when it's overskilled, and it's no fun for either of those situations. So there's an art to doing it, but glad to share any experience, volunteer policies, things we've encountered with the clubs. Absolutely happy to give that to you. So you have my contact information there. You have the club website, the chapter website, and then you also have Lynn's contact information from US Lacrosse. So I know I've gone quickly. I don't want to sit here and just read slides to you, but please, if you have questions or there's anything we can help with, let us know. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ted. Does anyone have any questions for Ted? And feel free to chime in. I did want to first just introduce that we have a section of the girls regional girls session that specifically is a workshop topic to discuss recruiting strategies, so that we can share with each other how we can recruit more officials, both adults and juniors. So.
And Kyle makes one point I want to add here. This doesn't have to be gender aligned. This does not have to be boys ref boys ref boys and girls ref girls, or moms ref girls and dads ref boys. That's absolutely not the case. They are two different games, in terms of the way the rules, but it is not a gender alignment. So if you have a guy who's a great soccer official, and and you think he might be a good official to come out and help your, on the girls' side, or and you need a ref on the girls' side, go get him. Don't worry about the perspective, or the other way around if you have a need for a boys' ref. It does not have to align with gender. You want people who are there for the right reasons to help run the game and help a group of kids have fun. So, sorry, that's a great point. Thanks, Kyle.
Absolutely, Ted. And just to dovetail off of that, my daughter's currently ref girls, and they're interested in learning, and they're going to learn the boys game too. So they want to be able to ref either game.
Excellent.
Yeah, actually, I'll give you one suggestion from a club experience as well, for what it's worth. I would suggest to you that as you think about it for your club, that when your board, particularly your athletic director, and some of your board members who are going to be around the field, your president, that type of thing, who are getting coach certified, get certified for coaching both sports. When I was the president for Petaluma, we wanted a huge emphasis on building out the girls program. I coached guys lacrosse. I didn't know much about girls lacrosse, but I went to the training session. I'm not sure how much of it I'll remember, I'll be totally honest, but I went to the training session so that I could stand up in front of our club and say, I have an interest in this. I've become certified in both those, and it was very helpful to me when I was the athletic director as well, to understand situations that came up where parents or coaches came to talk to me. So think about it from a perspective of the leader of your clubs, getting them certified. They don't have to go to level 3 in both boys and girls, but think about them getting them certified in both the boys and the girls coaching it sets the right tone and perspective for parents who are looking at your program and your commitment to grow the girls game. So just a thought and suggestion, because we did it and it was noted within Petaluma, and we got a lot of feedback from parents who appreciated the fact that we had taken the time to do it.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, the next topic we are going to talk about is our scheduling process and training supports. So for our A levels, should the dates be moved to January? And is this still beneficial for your clubs to schedule A in high school online before Bs and youth teams?
I think it should be moved to January. I think especially this fall, I think I put it on the post, we don't know what kind of fall ball we're going to have. And if it's going to even be, if we're going to be able to have a fall ball, or if it's going to be small sided group training. So usually we use our fall ball to get a sense of like 80% of our A team. Usually there's 20% that we wait to do until our practices start in February. But we may not get a sense if we're having an A or a B team. So if it could be as late as possible for scheduling, it might be helpful. That's just thinking about what fall ball could be like.
Yeah, so this pushing it back to January is almost a whole month. So that would be giving you a lot of time, because we do the in-person scheduling is typically December, the second Saturday in December. And online scheduling generally starts the week before that.
I moved to put everything starting in January if possible.
Okay. Does anybody disagree, or does anybody want to agree with Kim?
I agree. I think it makes sense to push them all back. I think it does, to the extent we're trying to help people select into A. I think if people are uncertain, they're just going to defer and play B. I mean, some of those clubs that have eternally had A programs are going to make those choices, early. But for the most clubs that are weighing that A-B decision, giving them more time to figure out their team helps us get people placed in the right age group or in the right skill group.
Yeah. So the second bullet point would be does everybody agree that you still want to do A in high school before B, so that you can secure those schedules before your Bs?
Absolutely. This is Colleen Pollen from Chico Rebels. I ran into a situation, in fact, last year where I had to be at the mini meeting in Sacramento while being on the online meeting for high school and A. Very difficult. So if we could just kind of not have those deadlines overlap for some of us that do all the scheduling across the board, that would be great. But I think moving the rest of it to January, because how many of us actually we go to these meetings in December and most of us don't even input it, and it would make the processes more cohesive if we were all doing it, week by week by week, and you were sending out your templates at the same time to remind us of the procedures. I mean, I think that makes sense, but just not overlapping A in high school with the B levels when some of us clubs only have one scheduler on the boys side.
I have a quick question. Is there a way also, and would it help I know Dan Miller gets swamped with scheduling stuff. Is there a way to spread that work out too? So if we did get some updates on games inputted, and could that be a little more technologically advanced and progressive as we go?
Yeah, we have a slide coming up of a proposal to mitigate that. So hold tight on that topic.
Yeah, I was just going to add, Aaron, Greg, absolutely. So we're looking at a lot of things from a short-term and a long-term perspective. So the options that Aaron's talking about kind of falls into kind of short term, but we are looking for some long term solutions as well to streamline it.
Yeah, I was just kicking off Colleen's comments that if there was some scheduling that could be updated week to week, you know, even for the short term, it would be helpful to be able to see it.
Absolutely.
I think to be able to do that and make it more efficient on the preseason and the ramping up to the official scheduling day.
Yep. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So this next
Is it
part
possible? Is it possible to have the high school scheduling, you know, separate in December if they need that, and then A and B happen in January?
well, we can write that down as an idea. So I think all ideas are welcome. So let's. I think from my perspective, having the A in high school online has worked very well over the last couple years. It's been done online first, and then finished up in person if needed. We do want to make sure like that if we do have the dates, if we have the second Saturday in January, would that be enough time to in January?
I think so.
So Kim, could you expand a little bit more on your on the statement of having high school in December? Like what?
Well, I'm just saying I don't know why I don't understand enough about it, but like why does I don't know if high school needs to have it happen in December. I feel like the constituents for high school versus the 8th grade and under are kind of a different world.
Right.
I get it's for reffing or whatever, but if high school I would think might have different deadlines that they have to get in that we don't have to play by.
Yeah, that's fair. I was just curious if you had a couple of key concepts driving that question. But yeah, I understand what you mean.
My second thing was like, since we do it for A, is there any way to do it for B? I think the idea of getting into a room, I think we all agree, and we've said for years, is the most archaic thing in the whole world. And allocating a whole day on a Saturday when we're all so pressed for time and it's hard to get volunteers and stuff. I don't understand how it can't be online at this point.
This is Alyssa Dunlap from Grizzlies. I'm going to second that, Kim. I am newer to the NCGLA, and I want to. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I would like to also find a way to do something similar to what the A in high school group does. I find it really unnecessary to drive. I'm coming from Big Sur. People are coming from all over the place to get into a room and schedule in person. It's the year 2020. We can do better.
I actually agree with you, but I disagree with you. If people can make it to that central meeting for the youth, 80% of the scheduling gets done during that time. I would say if you're from a faraway distance, you could call in, but a lot of people get about 80% of their schedule done during that one time period. Takes about 4 hours because everyone starts talking to each other at the same time. Now, if there's a way to do that online with everyone online together, great. But I think the face-to-face still works. And if people can't make it face-to-face, they should just call in and try to make that work.
I think both points are good. This is Carlos. I think both points are good. I think one of the things we ought to look at, because I know that when we talk about the burden that we place on Dan, is that I feel like the error rate or the change rate on the online to this point is a little bit higher. I could be wrong about that, but I feel like sometimes what happens in the online scheduling is that people online schedule, because you don't have some of that face-to-face conversation that Nipper was talking about, that there ends up being a bunch of games that have to be changed by Dan manually after the fact, and it may create some additional work. So I would kind of put these ideas to Dan and ask him to figure out, as we're trying to alleviate his burden, if, putting everybody in online scheduling creates a greater burden on him or a lesser burden on him.
Why can't we just schedule on our own? Like, why can't we just schedule by email and or phone? Why do I think I agree. I think there is value scheduling in person. If some people prefer that, then we can offer that. But I think a lot could get done via email, via phone, in the same amount of time, and save people from driving all over the place. I don't know if that's feasible. That's just my thoughts.
Yeah, so I'm gonna jump in real fast.
I think that's feasible. I've been doing scheduling for like 20 years. And at one point, we just did all individually, and everyone got tired of that and wanted to have a centralized meeting. So in the South Bay, we just started having a regional meeting of everyone one night, and we got lots and lots of it done. I actually called it at my office where I work, and that's kind of how the one day of everything going together, because people, the amount of time when you're doing it individually and you keep calling people, emailing, texting, that adds up tremendously. My 2 cents. So anyone can do it all individually if they want, but the negative of that is then if there's also a centralized meeting, it's going to be hard for you to get all your games and every week can have a game. Whereas when you're in a centralized meeting, you're negotiating. The first half an hour, you may already have negotiated 4 dates with teams in your division, but then someone from out of your area comes by and says, hey, do you have a date on this game? And then you go back to the other person in the room or on the call and go, hey, can we switch this to this date?
Yeah.
And there's nothing like just doing that all live very fast.
Yeah, so I'm going to jump in real quick. I mean, Nipper, great points, and Alyssa's card. I mean, everybody's got great points on this. I think there's an opportunity through some technology that I've been talking from the board perspective as well as with the staff that can be implemented that provides that in-person concept. So if we think about the structure of the in-person meeting, right, everyone's in the room, but then we break out into conferences and people are working in the conferences, and then and Nipper, to your point, right, there's dynamic conversation that happens when you want to find a quote unquote game outside of your region. I think that flow, that process can be implemented into a virtualized context with breakout rooms and then dynamic conversations in a larger room. So I think there's an opportunity to incorporate this in a delivery model that meets everyone's needs and doesn't necessarily force everyone to physically be present in a room.
This is Neil from the Grizzlies. I just wanted to point out that basically over the last several years, several clubs have been essentially pre-scheduling before the meeting anyway by email. And we used to sort of not do that to follow the guidance of NCJLA. And then it became clear that you had to, otherwise once you got to the meeting, it was hard to get games. So sort of the teams are kind of speaking to the direction they want to go anyway. So just that should get taken into account.
All good feedback, everyone. We got some comments in the chat as well, which is maybe doing mini meetings like Sacramento did, regional, so maybe conferences. So we've got some good ideas. So we're gonna move on to the next topic for sake of time. I just wanted to touch base on the last bullet point, which is that we are actively pursuing a new website, and we are looking for websites that would have enhanced scheduling features. So let's keep our fingers crossed that we find something that we love. We all know athletics is a pain.
Is there like a itemized list or features that you're looking for in particular that could be sent out to prospective?
You can definitely send us any feedback you have or recommendations on league operating websites. We have a list ongoing that we've been working on over the last several months, but we haven't made a decision yet. So if you want to, you can type those into the chat or email Laura and Dan directly about any suggestions you have.
Okay.
All right. So this is where I was going with the hold that thought. Would you guys prefer submitting games via an NCGLA template, which would be an Excel sheet, and it would have drop downs? It would be prefabbed, where you would have the teams would be built in, the level of play would be built in, the sites would be built in. You would just need to add your the time of the game and make sure you had your opponents. So you would compile your Excel spreadsheet for all of your girls teams, one for all of your girls teams, one for all of your boys teams, and then just submit them to Dan, and he would upload them, and then we would scrub it after that, as opposed to logging into the NCGLA website and inputting them directly into the League Athletics.
How about the idea of using something like Google Sheets so that it's kind of a hybrid where it's online, but it doesn't have to be, emailed and can be changed readily if needed and without multiple copies, and it might save Dan or some effort. Does that make sense?
Yep. Yeah, Richard, we'll take that down. I mean, I've got some ideas as well. But yeah, that's a fair observation.
Any other feedback or yes or no's?
Yes, I just think if that's going to simplify it, I think what we're asking of our game scheduler, who's usually a volunteer, is kind of insane, and the time it takes. So if anything can be pre-populated or easier on a Google Sheet or whatever, it would hopefully save them and obviously save Dan.
Okay.
But yeah, I think this would be a good way of having an online scheduling where everyone can go in and jump in and put in their schedule at the same time, and everyone can see everything at the same time and see and it might help getting towards the goal of simplifying this thing and making it online. And
something like a live sheet, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like live collaboration, Aaron.
Yeah. that can get hairy.
Well, there's ways we can achieve that. I won't get into it in this call, but there's ways that we can do that. I think that observation, Richard, makes sense.
I think in general, there's some ways that we could, put the onus on us to input and update without Dan. Here's like a simple example that was kind of amazing to me this spring, was when you get your team managers, and you want to put them up onto League Athletics so that other teams can contact your team manager to confirm. I just wanted to, go onto my Coyotes Lacrosse, edit 10UA, put in our new team managers, or have them do it themselves or whatever. And Dan actually has to do that. You have to send it to him in a format, which then he has to update who the team managers are. And that's definitely something that doesn't happen, all at once. It's, you meet the team who want to be, you got to coax these people to be team managers. And that's something that we should, as a club, just be able to edit, update, new contact, rather than Kim Pepper. I have, Mrs. Smith is going to be the team manager, and I do that versus Dan doing it. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I did click the slide a little bit prematurely, sorry. If there's more comments about the scheduling, just add them to the chat box, please, and we will definitely take notes of that. So moving forward with the scheduling process, for conference structure, we want to know how many teams make an ideal conference? And should any incentives be given for playing outlier clubs at their home field? And outliers, I mean, I like I said earlier, I don't mean that to be a negative. It's geographical. So the clubs that are just that much farther out of, as you can see in the graphic, the regions are somewhat sprawling in parts. Some of the regions are a little bit more compact, but this is what we have to work with right now, and we absolutely want your feedback on these topics. And lastly, should the league host a neutral site to help facilitate play within your region?
Yes.
Yes.
I think that's a great idea. I think hosting a neutral site and you know, having essentially like a play day or a way that people can centrally go and play other teams that they normally don't play. You know, and have it, you know, having two, maybe 3 games, you know, there, and that's a good way of getting more games plus getting a variety of games, you know, variety of opponents.
I agree with Richard there. You know, being from Chico, I always have to bring in round robins to my house. I would love the opportunity to be able to see like San Jose and ourselves meeting somewhere in the middle provided by you, so we can play some of those games, get into round robins for our teams that are both traveling 2.5 hours each way. It would be great. I know I utilized that at one of your play dates last year to fill in some games to get us to the max games, and it worked wonderfully, and it was really helpful. And other teams were like, well, we're already there, so why don't you come down? It makes a huge difference for some of us, and I think it's going to be a big issue at the high school levels this upcoming season with the spread.
Yeah. Okay. Great feedback. Is there anyone else?
I'll chime in on the ideal conference size. I'd say, you know, 5, 6 or so, several. I mean, I don't know how many we're looking at, but, you know, 6 to 8 would be good. You know, then you can play everyone twice and then, you know, have a 12 to 15 game season if you play people twice. So I don't know what other people's thoughts on that are.
We're going to talk about that too.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think maybe thinking of next year might be an anomaly.
Yep.
Maybe league conferences are smaller. They're 4 to 6, and you play your teams twice. And then at the end of the season, if it's potential to have jamborees and, you know, multi areas coming together. But I think realistically, they're going to have to be smaller for next year.
Yeah.
So just to double check, so the league hosting, facilitating jamborees or play days mid to late season-ish for any level, all levels, high school, 14, 12, to help bring outliers together or cross-conference play. Because I would say that I would like to see that clubs would want to instigate those on their own, but if we host a site and we help provide a site, and it's just more like a facilitation as opposed to, it's not like the jamboree where we have food trucks and all that, but just to help facilitate.
I mean, when you say facilitate on our own, it's like, you know, Santa Cruz would probably not create a play day in the middle of, say, Santa Clara in order to play other, you know, it's just not logistically feasible for us to do the scheduling, but, you know,
right, correct.
Correct.
So we would help find those middle areas, those fields to rent, and then bring people together.
Yes.
but also encouraging clubs to maybe have something a little bit bigger beyond a round robin. I think someone made that point earlier. Like if Monterey Tribe or if Santa Cruz Warriors hosted their own club day or jamboree, that might be more of an allure to come down and play multiple teams in one day, and make those games be full league games.
Aaron, I think and maybe this is what Richard is getting at, we hosted jamborees before, we're going to do it again. One of the beauties of that is you guys give us a lot of support. We set up in the morning and we check in, we make sure at the end of the day, but you guys really do the nuts and bolts during the day. And I think that's the difficult thing. If say, the Grizzlies we're going to host and we get Menlo Atherton High School, who's going to be there all day to make sure that everybody knows all the equipment and how to run it and on and on and on. So I do think it needs somebody from NCGLA to kind of be there, similar to the Jamboree, maybe not as much work, but instead of putting that burden on a club to have people there all day.
Yeah.
Okay. Good feedback.
And I do agree with Kim. I was going to say, I agree with Kim about the size of the conferences. I think the idea is, we're going to have to stay closer regionally. I think having 6 teams in a conference, if that can be done, you play each team twice, there's your 10 games. And if you decide as a club you want to go further out, you can, but I agree with Kim. I think that's a good number.
Yeah. What I was going to add is yes, with this thought of doing regional, outlier organizations, having their own mini tournament things. I mean, that's something that we can bring up for the scheduling and say, we've already planned this. We're going to play some teams locally, but we'll save some spots and bring it up into the scheduling to say, if anyone wants to come, we have this play day this tournament or centralized location that we're going to play 2 or 3 other teams. You can come and sign up for that and just have some spots there rather than just have only localized play at that type of meeting. Currently, we just organize with Monterey and possibly Hollister or something like that, and organize 6 game or 3 different teams, so we can possibly add another team and save a spot for somebody else. They could sign up if they want to at the scheduling.
Okay. The last point I want to just see if you guys have any feedback or how receptive you are to it as far as the incentives. If the NCGLA was able to or offered incentives for your club agreeing to travel to outliers in other conferences even, would you be up for that? We're talking maybe you wouldn't have officials fees or reduction in your registration fee. Here's an example. We could survey you to see if you'd be willing to be grouped into a travel conference. And this is not COVID-19. We're thinking of we're all able to do everything and go wherever we want. But would any of your clubs be interested in with your B teams, because it seems like A teams are already sort of travel teams, but travel conference. So you know that you would want your team to travel every weekend or every other weekend for further trips than just staying local.
Aaron, I don't know, my gut reaction is I don't know if those kinds of incentives like that example would, I don't know how it would trickle down. I mean, our challenge for traveling is our families, is getting, we will have, a number of years ago, we stopped scheduling, we stopped trying to, have our families come up to Marin, and I know that they don't like coming down to Menlo Park. I don't know if a club level referee discount is going to make much sense to our families who, you know, sees a game in Walnut Creek and says, you know what, we're just not going to go to the game that weekend. That, you know, that's the problem with scheduling games so far away, is then we start missing kids. You know, like the roster gets a little smaller, then we're, you know, rather than 18 players, then we're there with 11. And the experience is not great for our team. It's also probably not great for the other team we're playing. So maybe if the incentive worked directly for the families, I don't know. I don't know how we would do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. I think it's a financial decision. The financial decision on the organization is not, I mean, the convenience for the parents is more important. And if, unless you have a huge team, you know, to travel and then realize that some people aren't going to go, you know, especially if they're new to lacrosse and they're they're not hooked. You know, it's tough to schedule a away game when you might have 13, 12, you know, players. You know, if you only have a total of, you know, 16 to 18 players on the team.
I will say the one thing that Steven Krieger started doing with his 12U team and then 14U team the past couple of years that seemed to have worked really well is he just picks a weekend. Like they took their team down to Monterey, and in the past it was a day trip. You go down to Monterey and back for one game. But he just started communicating to his families like in November and December, like, hey, the third weekend of March, we're going to do a team overnight. And we're going to get a hotel, you know, through the team managers, we're going to get a hotel block. And, you know, it's a night in a hotel with a family. So there's an expense there. But if it's 3 months out, if you let families know 3 months out, and you combine it with watching, you know, finding a high school game that the kids can watch maybe the afternoon before, and then a team dinner at the hotel, and then an early game, you know, on a Saturday or Sunday morning. So then, you know, if it's a 2-hour drive or 90-minute drive after the game, you're still getting home in, you know, early afternoon. So your day's not shot. I mean, there are a lot of considerations that I think families are more willing to say, like, okay, you've put some thought into this. You know, we have one really far away game, like for us, like Petaluma or Monterey. You make it a team weekend, and you know, you give it a team dinner, and you do activities together, kind of like you would, like if you were traveling back east for a summer tournament.
Right. That's a good idea. And I have heard that one before. And I think there's some comments down here, like for our feedback, we want to see what type of incentives or rules the league should consider adopting, and how can neighboring clubs be good neighbors to the outlier clubs. So to your point of within the Southwest region, that we give those furthermost clubs some help, like making sure they get a really good amount of home games too, because we have a more dense area, if I'm not mistaken, in the San Jose Peninsula area, and then it sort of dissipates down and the clubs are up much farther. So currently we do not have home and away rules. We just recommend them as best practice. The teams in a conference are only required to play each other once, and we have no required game amounts for 10U and 8U. So what feedback do you have provided on these topics? And is there anything that you'd like to see change? So does everybody think that these are good best practices to stick with?
I would just suggest not adding a lot of additional rules on scheduling, given sort of what's been the discussion going on in the league for a long time. We've always tried to at least kind of alternate home and away from year to year with teams. So like we'll go down to Monterey one year and they'll come to us the next, or we'll go to Santa Cruz one year and they'll come to us the next. It's just sort of part of being a good citizen. There are some clubs that seem to be less inclined to do those kind of things, but I just feel like more rules along, more encouragement of people cooperating, but not more rules is probably going to be better received.
Any other comments or feedback?
I have one really quick one. That came up in our call with the leaders of NCGLAs. We see that like some teams are like super teams where they're like 20 to 20 plus players, and then so it seems like there's some incentive for like fewer teams but bigger ones. Which makes it more difficult. So you have fewer teams to schedule with, but then they're looking for more games because a lot of their players don't get to play because there's so many people on the team. Is there any limit on the team size, or is there any I know practically it's like much above like 18 or 19.
We set the recommended limit this year. We capped it, and then we asked, if you have a circumstance for a large roster to submit a request, a waiver, to have more. I think the number might have been like 23, I forget, 20 something. As far as the minimum rosters, we have the minimums for play. But to your point, I think we could add that to best practices. But I get your point. I do understand that can be a problem.
Perhaps like an incentive would be to have lower costs if you have more teams, or like a discount for the second team. I don't know if associations are looking for that, but that would help make have a more variety of teams to play. And might be better for experiences for kids, who happen to be on a big team and they just don't get to play that much.
Yeah, I think I'm hearing maybe having some more best practices for roster size and the reasons why, and and including you can have more teams. This will probably dovetail into some of our discussions with that will happen later about small-sided games that we're going to bring up. So yes.
Okay.
And there's some of us, Colleen, there's some of us that carry large rosters because we have the big travel, and not everybody can make it like you guys find with the younger groups in your regions. And so like I have to carry big because I have to count on at least 3 or 4 of my varsity players having a conflict. So I carried a roster, I think at 22 at varsity this season. But then it was really up to me as athletic director on those large rosters to discuss with my coaching before they hit the fields, because I know the schematics at the high school level and the competition level, that this is a great opportunity for you to sit those starters and get those, more inexperienced. So I really had to carry large rosters because of our travel, but I'm very communicative with my coaches and our administrative staff on how we handle each game, as we watch the scores go out. So it just depends on each team, because there's no way I have the coaching staffs or the ability to carry 2 teams per rosters right now. I just never have enough. I get there to like 30, and you can't run a 15-man roster from Chico. It's just impossible. So
yeah.
But having those exceptions would be good, because I'm sure Mendo's in the same situation. I'm not sure where Monterey is right now. I'm sure Santa Cruz has some issues, but they are a hotter bed than us. So that's just my point and why I carry really large rosters, because I think I had 23 on U14 this year, but there were games when we showed up to 18. So.
Okay, so this next slide is where you get to tell us what you feel about our education, and we want to know what you think. Sorry, I have to close. My mouse isn't cooperating today at all. So we coordinate the dates, locations, and logistics for the coaches' clinics, and we want to know if you want us to continue to do that, or should we have clubs submit their requests to host the clinic? So this would mean like we need to know if you want to have a clinic in your area, if your coaches, you need to have a level 1, a level 2, and then obviously we have some other ideas listed at the bottom. So need-based versus we just say, okay, this year your clinic is at Menlo Atherton, and then nobody signs up. We don't get low, we get low attendance. So putting more of the, hey, NCGLA, we'd love to have a coaches clinics this year in our region, and we want to host it.
Something that might be kind of interesting to think about is if we're not getting good for the in-person coaches clinic, I've been a part of a couple of virtual coaches clinics through Zoom during this whole COVID thing, and they've been really informative. And there was really good attendance, mostly because you don't have to leave your home, but that might be something to think about, something to consider. There's a lot of things that can be learned technique-wise, even the X's and O's virtually.
I think it's a great idea that way. I think we need to adapt and leverage a lot of the experience through this, COVID experience that, our kids can learn through a Zoom classroom, and certainly we can do that as well, and it would save a lot of money and time and get better attendance.
The other thing I want to add too with virtual things is we can bring in U.S. lacrosse players, we can bring in WPL players virtually, and that way we have access to some of the best minds of the country.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure what's going on the women's side as much, but I can tell you on the boys' side, the IMLCA, a number of college coaches like Jerry Byrne at Harvard, Deemer Class, player, have been putting on these virtual clinics, and I've been watching them, and I know not a lot of other people have, and they are phenomenal. And I agree with Alyssa. There's so much to learn technique-wise and strategic-wise and team building. I mean, to me, those things are been more invaluable than almost anything else. And doing them virtually is real simple. And I think if the NCGLA looked into some of that kind of stuff, you get a lot of bang for your buck.
Yeah, I think
I was going to say, I agree. I think there's a lot of things, a lot of painful things about COVID, but some of the things are things you can get done efficiently and with people wasting time driving. So I feel like this is a perfect example of, for those of us who have to drive to the East Bay for a full Saturday for game scheduling or this meeting, it's really hard to give up a full Saturday when you've got a full family activities. So, maybe we learn from this and put a lot of stuff online.
Yeah. And just to pile on, I think my takeaway from this, using this virtual meeting things is I'd like to do that with my coaching, and perhaps if we had videos for the diversity training and stuff, and be able to show film or show these videos on a meeting like this, it's an opportunity that I really didn't consider doing prior to this whole thing, and being able to show film on just lacrosse or share the diversity video rather than sending a link out to the parents or just to say, show your kids this thing or whatever. I think it's a good additional way to coach, and it'd be more effective.
Yeah. So we also want your feedback if you think that us offering and coordinating more online, and whether it's online or in person, most of these things listed below can be online. But above and beyond the level 1, the level 2, whether it's the online, I know US Lacrosse is trying to revamp their level 1 and level 2 to see if they can offer a web version. They are already in process with the level 3 online. So that's much easier to do because it is basically X's and O's as opposed to the hands-on learning that we've done with the new USL development courses for level 1 and level 2 in-person clinics. So we want to know if you'd like us to coordinate additional trainings, whether they're in person or online, for your coaches that have already done level 1 and level 2. So this would be the continuing education. So they're just not like done after they've done all their USL, because there's more, maybe first aid and CPR and more coaching education. The Up to Us Sports company does some really amazing things. And then the NFHS as well offers a whole bunch of coaches education that is beyond the X's and O's. So we just want to hear what you have to say if you think that would be good for us to help you facilitate that for your club coaches.
Hey, Aaron, for our more experienced coaches that not only have done level 1 and level 2, but they've also maybe they've been coaching for 3 or 5 or 10 or 15 years. Some of the best coaching resources that I've seen out there are like the Notre Dame video series or Duke Danowski's video series with, how he runs his Duke program. Does it have to be somehow connected to NFHS or US Lacrosse? Because there are tons of great, not coaching courses, but I don't know how you would I don't know how you would like centralize it or put it into a curriculum. But there's a ton of great stuff out there that can speak to the veteran coach, so that we can continue.
Yeah, I'm to Amy's point. I think hearing what you have to say as well, that these would just be offerings. They wouldn't be requirements by any means. Yeah. They would just be offerings so that we can help you facilitate coaches' education, because we do want the coaches to be, continue in the game along with a lot of the moms and dads that coach that turn out to want, be the high school coach in 4, 5, 6, 7 years. So to give them those continuing education pieces, so they're not trying to cram it down when they're kids in 8th grade, like, oh my gosh, now I have to do all this other stuff. Because as our kids grow, they change and have different needs.
Yeah, I think that NCGLA should continue to coordinate these things, and if it's just like an email that says, hey, there's a seminar that is available, or these Notre Dame or Duke clinics or like videos are available, or just to send those out to the coaches, it would be helpful. I do that for our coaches, but it'd be, if NCGLA send it out to all the organizations and it's an optional thing, and just to educate our coaches more would be good.
Okay. I'm going to move on to the next slide. So we have a sample club operations manual. You go to the NCGLA homepage. It's on the far right upper corner. Looks exactly like that graphic. And then once you click one of those links, you'll go into the Google Drive, which has all of the documents. And the tabs include presidents, girls and boys reps, and I think just your operations procedures. And they're all samples that you can use and tailor to your club's needs. But this is something very valuable, I think, that a lot of people get a lot of use out of, but we wanted to make sure that you all know that this is there. So for those of you who do already know that it's there, what other topics or activities would your club like to see covered in our sample operations manual? And how does your club continue to support or train your coaches and administrators beyond using our sample? And is your club looking for any more customizable templates that we can help put together for you? And right now in progress, we have the Hold Harmless Agreement and tax donation letter and the transition checklist for presidents and treasurers. So those are two that we're working on right now. Is there anything else? Are any of you using this? Have you had any experience using this so far that you'd like to share?
I am Erin calling at Chico Rebels. I basically moved from Marin County to Chico about 2 years ago. And when I moved there, I saw just a lack of processes compared to what I'm accustomed to in the Bay. And then that's about the same time you guys rolled this out. And so I thought it was a great time to teach and show it while using your documents. And I can't tell you, it made so much sense. The club communications page was amazing. Every time Laura sent out her email, I would just pass it to the team and say, and put it on an actions items list and assign it. And it really helped the workflow because I basically had a team, a whole club jump off that had ran the club for 5 years, and we're left with myself and 3 new people. And so there's just only so much we can do. It was invaluable. Any new club, anything, I mean, it was invaluable for me to just teach, you know. I thought you guys did a wonderful job there. I can't think of what I would add to that, but I could go back through it and give you some feedback later. But I used it. I rebuilt the entire Chico Rebels on it this year. And I said, no, this is the Bible. This is the Bible. So we treated it as our Bible, because you know, they don't always want to hear it from somebody like me that has, you know, a vast experience, but look, this is what they want. Well, this is what I understand them all know. Read the document. You know what I mean? And so I used it constantly.
Well, I want to give props to individuals, but I don't know how appropriate that would be. This is a collaboration of not just Laura, Chris, and myself. It's where we came from, and we called upon, like, I was like, we have this whole, like, my club had this whole calendar where the dates were here and what we did, and it was all organized, and Laura's like, ask if we can use it. So we just put it together and like, we need to give guidance. So it was really a work of art, let's just say. So I really think that if clubs are having trouble getting their ducks in order, this really is an invaluable tool. So I really appreciate the feedback that it was just like, yes. So please take a look at it if you haven't so far. And we do want to know if there's anything else that you want or think that we should add to it that your club does that's not on here and we're missing something, let us know. So we want to help everybody, and it's best that we're all on the same page, and not everybody needs every bullet point on it, but you can pick and choose what works for you and what you need, because some clubs are really large, some are really small, but let us know. Any other feedback on this one? So we also have a Google Calendar that you can subscribe to. Did your club and coaches find this helpful? Did you let your coaches know that we had this? And what other events or tasks would you like to see added to our Google League calendar?
I never looked at it, but can you tell us what kind of events were put on it?
Sure. I think I can pull that up. I would say all of our dates for due dates, like the rosters are due this date or the scheduling meeting is this date. So all of any dates that we have published on our website and the operations guide were on the Google Calendar. All of the rep meeting dates and times with the invitations. All the preseason events, the postseason events, when all-stars are due, all of the dates that basically are embedded in the operations guide are on the Google Calendar. So above and beyond that, would there be any other events or tasks that you'd like to see added?
Yeah, if you did the training and things like that, I suppose that would be good additions to the calendar.
Okay.
Typically, our scheduling and stuff is done by a single person, so there's only an audience of our our AD for this. So.
Okay, so I think one thing would be to make sure that everybody knows who needs to know, have this as a resource and to subscribe to it, and that we do add all of those important due dates and dates of events.
Yeah, but also you might consider having separate calendars, like one for coaches, one for administrators, so that you don't, like, if you get too many events that aren't of interest, then you tend to ignore the whole thing. So I think if you kind of just specific tasks or specific types of calendars.
Okay. Anything else about the calendar?
I don't know if it ties to the calendar or the club support in general, but I found the games needed page last year very, very helpful. Although I also found out that not everyone was really utilizing it. So maybe if we had that promoted a little more specifically or clearly, more clubs used it and or knew about it, that was a helpful resource, and it could benefit the calendar and or the resources page.
Yeah, that's a great point. I feel like this season we really expanded to utilizing Google Drive and kind of putting it out there to more of in a mass outreach, and getting more clubs being interactive online. And I do agree that I don't think that was something that was used as much as it could be, and we could probably expand that for sure if people want it. So that will definitely be something that we can facilitate. I think we would want to maybe not rely on it too heavily, but to have something, we want people to get their schedules done on time, but it would be like the last minute, I guess. If they're having the clubs that are having trouble finding those last couple of games to get their final schedule done.
Yeah, it also helps with the uncertainty parts and the when there's rainouts or things like that. That's a good way to go in and find, how can I fill that spot now?
Does your club need any support with expanding the game, and especially specifically to high school or city planning of adopting of lacrosse. Guys are all good to go?
Is it, are you switching the slides? Is it on a different slide?
Same slide. I just want, for
Oh.
outreach and clinic support, we want to know if your clubs need help, or how can we help you with expanding the sport in your region, within your club, to your neighboring regions, and any specific support with high school lacrosse or city planning in regards to adopting lacrosse. So expanding.
So Aaron, like I ran into a woman in Oroville, from Oroville, that's in the high school at Oroville in Chico, in the gym the other day. And she asked me about, getting some stuff. Is that something I could like reach out to Lynn at US Lacrosse and set up like a clinic for them with US Lacrosse to come in and do that play day for their youth and maybe high school players?
Yes.
That's where I could use the assistant personally, because we just don't have the staff, but I absolutely have enthusiasm. And I do have people reaching out to myself and Corey Woods from outsiding areas, but we would need support there, but I just don't have the full-time coaching staff. But Chico State sounds like they're getting a new head coach who's in my inbox now. And I hope to reach out to him and get him involved in maybe going out to Paradise High School, going out to Oroville. So that I would love to talk to you guys about. As for CIF, we're a little behind CIF. We're just etching field schematics on turf, which is a positive in getting into CIF. But until we can have 2 high school teams of boys and girls to run the 2 high schools, it's a non-issue. So I'm looking at that as a 5-year goal for my U12s, if that makes sense. But I would love to talk to Lynn or you guys about when people reach out, what we can offer them, because I just don't have the coaching full time,
Yeah, definitely. We want to be able to help. There is growth.
Yeah, there's people interested. We had a lot. We hosted a massive play date our first weekend out. I locked the fields for 3 weekends and brought in vendors and all stuff. And we had a lot of people parents come out from Paradise and other regions, and a lot of parents stay for the high school, and they were blown away. So I got immediately a couple of emails, and so did Corey Woods. So that's a good sign that the football boys up here, because football's still a really big sport up in that valley, and are starting to look at it, but I need support.
Okay. Yeah. So
hey, Aaron. Sorry, Aaron, this is Ted Patchett from NorCal chapter. I think there's 2 pieces to this. There's one, the clinics and helping people get interested. We also then see people starting to ask about what does it cost, if we want to put a lacrosse program in the high school, how have you gone about it? How do you, go and get it approved? What does the budget look like? What are the things we should be thinking about? I know there's people in the NCJLA have done this. We also have people, Don Aiello in Sacramento, and a number of other people that have actively worked to get high school moved from, either into a club sport in high school, sort of working with the NCJLA, or if it's a movement to go to CIF, we can help people there. So there's budget templates and all that type of thing that are available to support you with that.
Awesome. So we've taken notes of this topic, and we will move on to the next one, but good stuff. And we do want to help whoever needs help with expanding the sport. So let us know. So Ted, you're still on the call. We have NorCal Lacrosse providing scholarship programs, and US Lacrosse provides First Stick, Trilax, and Sankofa lacrosse clinics. So
can I take 30 seconds, just talk about each of those? The NorCal chapter used to be part of the NorCal Lacrosse Foundation, and it's split off. And they sort of went separately. But the NorCal Lacrosse Foundation is actually A foundation set up by a, can't remember the name of the gentleman offhand. I think it was Faulkner, who passed away, and he left essentially an endowment or a fund to be used to promote the sport of lacrosse. And so if you're looking to start a new program, you're looking for an effort to develop, lacrosse from a diversion inclusion perspective, the NorCal Lacrosse Foundation is one of those groups that gives out funds in order to do that. And if you go to their website, they have all the forms there. They'll tell you what they do. They have all the paperwork there for you to fill out. The clinics that are mentioned under U.S. Lacrosse are clinics that are offered by U.S. Lacrosse, worked in some cases in conjunction with the NorCal chapter. So the First Stick program is a program where I believe it's for $35. A new player can get a stick and a U.S. Lacrosse membership. Trilax is actually for people to come out and try that. Sorry, First Stick program is actually complete gear, if I recall correctly. Trilax is a program where kids come out, they get a stick. It's a fairly to come out and really try the sport for the first time. U.S. Lacrosse will provide trainers to go with these. And then Sankofa is the clinic for where you have, as termed here, underrepresented lacrosse communities. So as an example, we've gone into Richmond, we've gone into areas in the East Bay, working in some cases with clubs, in some cases separately from clubs. Although we do, try to supplement and look for clubs for training assistance to supplement what U.S. Lacrosse might bring in. So, I'd say to you, money's NorCal Lacrosse Foundation, clinics and equipment to support those is through U.S. Lacrosse.
Lots of good stuff that is very, very, very helpful to programs that need money or need equipment, and you just gotta ask. And I have heard just really great, wonderful stories, even this past spring, where programs got a whole team set up for a new program, new high school program, and it's just wonderful to hear. So please don't hesitate. So I just wanted to add that I think some of these U.S. Lacrosse programs are kind of on hold right now, but you can reach out to Lynn via email and let her know that you're interested. And so when they become available for the next season, that she can get in touch with you so that you can get the ball rolling with those. I think we have one more slide. Okay, so this is a possible NCJLA operations guide update. There's some of the draft of the text is here on the right. So coach recruiting is a problem in some parts of the league. Other areas don't have this issue. However, the board is requesting input regarding this topic. The purpose of this slide is just to gather feedback rather than to discuss. And we will provide your ideas and feedback to the board. So does everyone understand what I'm getting at? So we want to know what guidelines you think would be helpful to your club coming from us to support you, and what would a coach or parent need to know about youth recruiting. So yeah, the floor is open.
I would propose that there's, as much as possible, specific, I don't know what you would call it, education or guidelines to what constitutes recruiting, because I believe that this has been either a non-specific and written rule for a long time, but the enforcement is tricky, I think, at best. So what's the, if somebody said, hey, you did this, no, I didn't, I see the draft text of the punishment here, but what would it really take for someone to get there, and how can it be specifically communicated to coaches, administrations, and clubs what is considered, improper recruiting outside your boundaries, et cetera? Because I don't know it's always that cut and dry with the club teams and the travel teams and high school and relationships, it's still a small community.
Anyone else? I know it's a touchy subject. If you want to use the chat, that's cool too. Okay. Does anyone have any questions about the draft text? I think I might even be able to open. So we've got current operations guide content, and then some new content. Might be hard. New content, which I guess would that be help? Is this helpful for you guys to read this? This is just proposal. It's not just ideas. Is there any feedback or questions? Okay, well, if there are no other feedback, let's see, go to, then I will have to end the meeting, but thank you so much for everyone on the call. And if you, I'll be on the girls call later today talking about some of the same subject, but some other subjects. So I look forward to seeing you guys then too.
Thanks.